Good evening. More than 10 crore voters in Maharashtra and Haryana are waiting to cast their ballots. They will get to decide who rules them for the next 5 years. Hello and welcome to Verdict 2014. I'm Zaka Jacob. These are the headlines that we're tracking on the show. The stage is set for multi-cornered assembly elections in Maharashtra and Haryana. The Election Commission finalizes preparations for D-Day tomorrow. Nitin Gadkari rules himself out of returning to state politics, says he has no intention of being Maharashtra's next chief minister. The Election Commission slaps a notice on Raj Thackeray over an alleged model code violation. The MNS chief has time till tomorrow to clarify his remarks against non-Maharashtrians. And MNS candidate Sudhakar Khade gets anticipatory bail in an alleged rape case just a day ahead of the elections. Our top story on Verdict 2014, Maharashtra is all geared up for an epic poll battle Wednesday. Never before in the history of the state has there been a five-cornered contest. The recent splits in long-standing alliances, whether it's Shiv Sena BJP or NCP Congress, and that too just 3 weeks before the polls, have set the stage for an election that could possibly bring tectonic changes to Maharashtra's political map. The big question, of course, is, will any single party get a clear majority on its own? And if not, what possible realignments will take place?
3 weeks back, these two developments probably had the biggest impact on the possibilities of the assembly polls outcome in Maharashtra. A 25-year-old alliance and 15-year-old tie-up snapped over differences between the top four parties of the state. That is why this year's assembly elections will be an interesting affair. With 288 seats at stake, most parties are contesting in almost all seats for the first time in a long while. Over 8 crore voters are expected to participate in the polling process to decide the fate of around 4,000 candidates. Preparations are complete for the elections on Wednesday. Tight security is in place for all the sensitive booths across the state.
The Election Commission and nodal officers have already put in place all security arrangements. Mumbai division has 36 assembly constituencies, which requires a policing of paramilitary forces. State police and other police will be taking part in all these process. And department officials from Revenue Department, Technical Department have already taken place in the polling activity. They will be doing their voting process tomorrow.
We have conducted the cross-border meetings. We have put the check nakas on the borders. And on daily basis, we have conducting the raids against the illegal dump of liquor.
A big challenge for the Election Commission will be to attract more voters to exercise their franchise this time. In 2009, Maharashtra recorded 60% voter turnout. The administrative unit in the state has taken numerous steps to amplify the turnout, especially of female voters.
We focus on female voter first. When female voter come for voting, her all family will go out. We go to all villages. We organize Mahila Gram Sabha and Nukkad Natak.
There will quite a few contests that will be keenly watched on Wednesday. Former Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan will try and retain his seat from South Karat constituency. His former deputy Ajit Pawar is seeking re-election from his stronghold in Baramati. BJP State President Devendra Fadnavis from Nagpur Southwest and party leader Eknath Khadse from Muktainagar are the two frontrunners for the CM's post. In 2009, Congress and NCP together won 144 seats. The BJP Sena alliance won 90. On debut that year, Raj Thakray's MNS could only win 13. However, the tables turned drastically in the recent Lok Sabha polls, where BJP and Shiv Sena swept 41 out of 48 seats. Congress and NCP were left with 6 seats between them. While political pundits feel the state will throw up a hung assembly this time, much depends on who will benefit from the anti-incumbency factor against the 15-year rule of the Congress-NCP government and to what extent. With inputs from Rajkamal Rao and Kriti Mishra, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So more than 8 crore voters will decide the fate of more than 4,000 candidates, 90,000 polling booths. Let's go straight across to our correspondent Rajkamal. He's joining us live from Mumbai. Maharashtra comes second only to Uttar Pradesh in the country when it comes to the number of assembly segments there are. Just walk us through what a mammoth task this is for the Election Commission and what kind of preparations they put in place for this exercise.
Zaka, it's going to be a very difficult task for Election Commission to hold elections in 288 assembly segments spread across 36 districts. Remember, all these districts, more than 11 districts in Vidarbha region, they share borders with states like Telangana and Chhattisgarh. Especially in Gadchiroli district, there is one constituency which is known as Aheri constituency, which is very sensitive, hypersensitive, I must say. I spoke to the collector a short while back, and he was hopeful that he will conduct free and fair poll in that Aheri constituency, because in Lok Sabha elections time, that was the only constituency which had some violations of code of conduct, and some kind of violence activities took place because of the clashes between MNS and Shiv Sena workers over there. With change in equations, political analysts and even the Election Commission is anticipating some kind of clashes between different political parties in a five-corner contest. It's very crucial for them. So it's believed that police are anticipating some kind of clashes, but they are well prepared for that, Zaka.
All right. Many thanks, Raj Kamal, for joining us live on Verdict 2014, giving us the very latest into the preparations that have been put in place by the Election Commission for what is a mammoth task. 288 assembly seats, the second largest in terms of that number for any state here in India. Let's try and make sense of the political winds that are blowing on the eve of the elections. Remember, this is a huge election for Maharashtra. For the first time in many years, the major political parties, whether it's the BJP, the Congress, the NCP, the Shiv Sena and the MNS, of course, not to forget them, are all contesting on their own individual strength. Kumar Ketkar is now joining us live from Mumbai. He's one of the best-known political analysts out of the state of Maharashtra. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Ketkar, here on Verdict 2014. My first question to you is direct, and you've seen this. The winds of change, it seems, are blowing in Maharashtra. You've seen opinion poll after opinion poll seem to give a clear edge to the BJP. Some even suggesting the BJP may be able to form a government on its own, get 145 seats on its own. What is your reading of how the politics of this election is shaping up? All right, we're trying to get back to Mr. Kumar Ketkar in just a moment. He's, of course, one of the foremost political exponents of Maharashtra politics. We'll try and patch that audio through and get to him and try and get a sense of just how tectonic shifts are taking place in the Maharashtra political landscape. Remember, just 3 weeks before this election rolled in, the two big alliances of the state, the Saffron Alliance of Shiv Sena and BJP and the Congress Alliance of NCP and the Congress, split right down the middle. So all four major political parties are contesting this election on their own. So in a sense, this election is also going to be a testimony to the individual strengths of these parties. Remember, the Congress-NCP combined has ruled Maharashtra for the last 15 years. So anti-incumbency is a huge factor. Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan over the last 5 years, he's of course contesting from South Karad. Remember, he's been a member of parliament before from Karad, but not an MLA. Ajit Pawar, he was the Deputy Chief Minister in the outgoing cabinet, and also corruption taint in general against the NCP. That has become a big talking point in this election. This is the composition of the current assembly, but this of course will mean nothing in the context of 2014 assembly elections. We've got Mr. Kumar Ketkar now live from Mumbai. I was asking you, I mean, the political winds of change that are blowing in Maharashtra. You've seen opinion poll after opinion poll seem to suggest that the BJP will be the single largest. In fact, a large number of them saying that the BJP will be able to get a majority on its own. What is your reading of how the winds are blowing in Maharashtra? If that were to happen, the BJP would have added 100 seats to its kitty. Is that even possible? And if it does happen, how tectonic would that be?
Well, actually, all opinion polls are not saying that. Though a couple of opinion polls which were found to be relatively on the ball are saying that they will be able to get between 150 to 160 seats. And in fact, Narendra Modi has been publicly saying that we'll get about 165 seats. But going by field reports, I don't think such large landslide victory is possible, because the highest score of the BJP was in 1995 when they scored 65 seats. Ever since then, they have been between 50 and 60. And when they came to power in 1995, they came along with Shiv Sena. This is for the first time that Shiv Sena and BJP are split. So you can say that the so-called Hindutva vote is also split along with that. And now Hindutva vote is split in the so-called Marathi pride, Marathi identity, Marathi Asmita on the one side, and Hindu identity. But let me tell you, this is the election in which actually no specific issue has been focused. No specific agenda has been presented. No specific program has been given. Though every party has presented its manifestos, there is no what you can call a dominating issue. If I may say, without sounding absurd, that actually it is not one election in Maharashtra, but something like 288 elections in Maharashtra.
So in that
Because
context,
most
in
of the
that context, Mr.
constituencies,
Ketkar,
even the nearby constituencies,
yeah, in that context, when
Yeah.
there are 288 different elections that are happening, the margins can be so low, sometimes
Yes,
even less
yeah.
than 1,000 votes.
Yeah,
In that
yes,
context,
yeah,
if you're
exactly.
predicting, say, a hung assembly, where does that place the major political parties of the state? Obviously, this campaign, for many of them, whether it's the Shiv Sena, the MNS, the Congress NCP, it's been them versus the BJP. If this were to be a fractured mandate, and even if the BJP emerges as the single largest, because this campaign has been so vicious, this campaign has been the rest of them put together versus the BJP, where does that place the BJP? And in specific, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's gone out on a limb, he's addressed as many as what? 27 rallies in Maharashtra, something that's unusual for a Prime Minister.
Totally unusual. In fact, there are two interpretations of Narendra Modi's such a heavy campaign. One is that he is not sure that the BJP will be able to make on its own a full majority. And the second is he wants to show that he is so powerful that he can completely isolate the local BJP and emerge as primo number one. Now the question is, what is the issue in the election? It is Narendra Modi itself is an issue. It is not Narendra Modi's agenda, because, for instance, in last 100 and whatever days, no issue that he presented during Lok Sabha has been fulfilled. CBI has not been made autonomous. The black money has not been even mobilized. Swiss accounts names have not come. So nothing is on Lokpal.
Okay.
So those issues are on the back burner. Now what is happening is Maharashtra issues are not there at all. Narendra Modi is not highlighting Maharashtra issues. He is only highlighting how Maharashtra can be free from the Congress NCP's misrule. That is the only theme line that he has developed. Now what happens is the same theme line is also that of the Shiv Sena. The same theme line, ironically, is also of the NCP, which is running against Congress. And
Okay.
Congress is also saying that NCP was obstructing. So, there is only issue of a non-governance, which our governing parties are also making against each other.
I guess the only issue has been about betrayal, has been about who called off the alliance, who was responsible, and who takes the credit, if at all the breaking of the alliance has been beneficial to one party or the other. But I guess we'll have to leave it at that. Kumar Ketkar, thanks for joining us on The Verdict. We will be in touch with him as well as other political analysts in the run-up to Election Day, which is tomorrow, Wednesday. And then, of course, counting is on the weekend, which is Sunday, the 19th of October. Now, Mr. Ketkar was referring to this as well. This campaign for the BJP has been run entirely by the Narendra Modi, Amit Shah combine. So much so, they haven't declared a chief minister if the BJP were to come to power either on its own or with the help of allies. Now, one possible contender, of course, was Union Minister Nitin Gadkari. Remember, he's been chief minister before, but today he's ruled himself out of returning to state politics, even if the BJP were to come to power in Maharashtra. Now, reacting to speculation that he could be one of the contenders for the CM's post, the Union Transport Minister said that there is no dearth of capable leaders in the Maharashtra BJP to occupy the post of chief minister. Gadkari was one of the key campaigners for the BJP as well. He addressed as many as 64 public meetings across Maharashtra over the last 3 weeks. He says the party's central leadership will decide the name of the legislative party leader once the polls are done with, but he declined to name any frontrunner. So some last-minute drama as well just ahead of the polls on Wednesday. The Election Commission issuing a show-cause notice today to MNS Chief Raj Thackeray. The notice was issued for his alleged remarks against non-Maharashtrians, which he made at an election meeting in Ghatkopar on the 5th of October. Now, according to the poll panel, it's a prima facie case of model code violation. The Commission's now given Mr. Thackeray time till Wednesday morning to respond, failing which the poll body will take a decision without any further reference to him. On the same day, a relief of sorts for another MNS leader, candidate Sudhakar Khade, has managed to get pre-arrest bail in an alleged rape case. The Bombay High Court granted the anticipatory bail on a bond of 20,000 rupees. Mr. Khade is contesting in the assembly elections from Kawate Mahakal constituency in Sangli district. In his petition, Mr. Khade had alleged that his political rivals had framed him in this case just ahead of the polls. Remember, NCP leader R.R. Patil, he's been Deputy Chief Minister before. He's contesting from this same seat. He drew strong criticism just a couple of days ago with his reported remark against Mr. Khare at a political rally. All right, we'll take a break here on Verdict 2014. When we come back, we'll shift focus to the other state that's going to polls Wednesday, Haryana, where also it's going to be a multi-cornered battle. We'll have a live report when the verdict returns. Welcome back to Verdict 2014. We talked about Maharashtra in our first segment. Haryana, too, is all set to witness a multi-cornered election contest this time. Despite a high-pitched campaign by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he addressed about 10 rallies in Haryana this campaign season. The Congress is looking for a record third term under the leadership of Bhupinder Singh Hooda. The BJP, for the first time, is contesting all 90 seats in the state.
The stage is set. All preparations are in place. Voters in Haryana will decide the fate in the 90 seats at stake on Wednesday. Around 1 crore 60 lakh voters are expected to exercise their franchise. A little over 1,300 candidates are in the fray. Election Commission has taken all necessary steps to ensure free and fair polling. The cops are also on their toes to prevent bogus voting.
पार्टियां रवाना हो चुकी हैं हमारी की सारी पार्टियां अपने अपने डेस्टिनेशन पर और स्वीप के तहत हमने लोगों में काफ़ी वोटर्स में अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम काफ़ी चलाया है तो इस बार लगता है कि 80% से ऊपर वोटिंग हमारी हो जाएगी और जहां सेंसिटिव हाइपर सेंसिटिव बूथ हैं वहां और पैरामिलिट्री फोर्स भी डिप्लॉय किया गया पूरा डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इसके लिए तैयार है तत्पर है और हमें पूर्ण आशा है कि पूरे ज़िले में जो पोल है वो पूरा फेयर फ्री और स्मूथ कंडक्ट होगा.
There will be some interesting contests on the cards. Incumbent Chief Minister Hooda will look to regain Gadhi Sapla seat in the Jat heartland of the state. Uchana Kala will be a prestigious contest for INLD. The seat is currently represented by its jail chief O.P. Chautala. The party has fielded his kin Dushyant Chautala to retain the seat. Haryana Janhit Congress chief Kuldeep Bishnoi is in fray from Bhajanlal's bastion Adampur. After losing from Hisar in the Lok Sabha elections, it has now become a huge challenge for the Bishnoi family to retain the seat in assembly polls. Haryana BJP President Ramvilas Sharma is once again contesting from Mahendragarh seat. He is one of the top contenders for the Chief Minister's post from BJP. In the 2009 polls, it was a tight contest between Congress and INLD. BJP and HJC could not manage to win more than 10 seats. The two parties have now parted ways to contest the polls alone. But things have changed a lot since 2009 as the BJP is riding high after an impressive show in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections. The party bagged 7 out of the 10 seats. Ruling Congress was decimated to just 1 seat while INLD won 2. It remains to be seen if BJP will be able to transform their superlative form into votes in the assembly polls too. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
This is a big battle of prestige for the Congress and the BJP. For the INLD, this is a battle of survival. Let's now speak to our senior correspondent, Shyam Sundar, who's been tracking the campaign trail in Haryana for the last 3 weeks. I want to first talk a little bit about, traditionally, Haryana politics has always been dominated by caste. It's been run by different sets of families, the Chautala family, the Bishnoi family, and most recently, of course, the Hoodas, who've now become the new power family in Haryana. The BJP's campaign was led by Narendra Modi. What he was offering the voters was essentially a break from the past, to say that we can rid Haryana of this family politics, this dynastic politics, and usher in development. In your travels in Haryana, when you spoke to people there, is this going to be an election that's different from the past?
Well, as far as Haryana election is concerned, it is different in a sense that BJP is a major player in these elections, at least in districts like Faridabad, Rewari, Mahendragarh, Kurukshetra, Karnal and Ambala. In these areas, BJP is giving tough fight to Indian National Lokdal and Congress. But as far as, caste politics is concerned or family-dominated politics is concerned, we don't see a very, very different election. If you look at Rohtak, Jhajjar, Bahadurgarh, these are the Congress-dominated seats, but these are Congress-dominated seats because Bhupinder Singh Hooda, the Chief Minister, has a certain kind of influence in this area. And if you look at Sirsa, Hisar, Jind, in these areas, here Kuldeep Bishnoi and Om Prakash Chautala, their families have their influence. If you talk about Kathal, then Randeep Randeep Singh Surjewala, again son of senior Congress leader Shamsher Singh Surjewala. So family politics and caste politics is still there, and we see a multi-corner fight in these elections in Haryana.
Let's talk a little. I mean, we've talked a lot about the BJP in Congress and how this is a big battle for both those national parties in Haryana. But this could be a very battle for survival for parties like the INLD. The entire Chautala clan, except the fourth generation Dushyant Chautala, who's out. Everybody else is in jail. In fact, Om Prakash Chautala had to return to jail after the Delhi High Court cancelled his bail and asked him to go back to jail. How much has this become a battle of survival for the INLD and also the other smaller parties? Let's not forget the Janhit Congress, for example.
Well, as far as Janhit Congress party is concerned, or the new party formed by Mr. Vinod Sharma, who was a very close associate of Mr. Bhupendra Singh Hooda at one time, he has formed Haryana Jan Chetna party. For these parties, definitely, and for these leaders, definitely, it is a question of survival. But as far as Indian National Lok Dal is concerned, in Lok Sabha elections, they proved that they are a strong force in Haryana, at least in Jat-dominated areas. They won 2 seats from Hisar. Dushyant Chautala, grandson of Om Prakash Chautala, he won with a good margin, and he defeated Kuldeep Bishnoi, whose father was Chief Minister of Haryana. And in Sirsa, the stronghold of Indian National Lok Dal, they got that seat also. And in the campaign of these elections also, we have seen that there is a sympathy wave in favor of Indian National Lok Dal. So and there is a chance that Indian National Lok Dal may emerge single largest party after the results. So I don't see that way a survival question for Indian National Lok Dal.
Okay, we'll wait and see how this election plays out. We'll be in touch with you, Mr. Shyam Sundar, through the course of the election day, which is Wednesday, as well as counting, which happens on Sunday, the 19th of October. Big battle there in Haryana, a multi-cornered battle as well. Now, flying squads appointed by the Election Commission have seized more than 18 crores in cash and more than 4.5 lakh litres of illicit liquor in both the poll-bound states, that's Haryana and Maharashtra. Now, according to final compiled data for Maharashtra, the surveillance teams have managed to seize something like 15 crores just in cash from Maharashtra. Last week, a case was registered against NCP leader and former Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar. This was in connection with the seizure of 4.5 lakhs in Parbhani. Now, the cash was seized from a vehicle which also carried his visiting cards as well as his clothes. In Haryana, close to 3 crores in cash was seized since the poll dates were announced. In its effort to curb the use of black money as well as illegal funds in these elections, the Election Commission had deployed flying squads, and that seems to have drawn results. There were officers from the Central Revenue Services in almost all districts that were going to polls in both these states. And that's a wrap of Verdict 2014 as we count down to the big election day, Wednesday, for Haryana and Maharashtra. We'll have live coverage all day here on Rajya Sabha TV. In the meanwhile, from me, Zakir Jacob, and the rest of the team, thanks for your time.